Over to you, Manjushri ma'am.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Honorable speaker of today's webinar, Mr. Nik Peachey, President of Dharampeth Education Society, Advocate Ulhas Aurangabadkar sir, Principal of RSM Dharampeth Arts and Commerce College, Dr. Rajiv Ashtikar sir, our technical expert and my colleague, Mr. Nadeem Khan, and all my dear participants. A hearty welcome to you all to this webinar on adapting materials for the virtual classroom. A picture may be worth 1,000 words, but a shared whiteboard is at least a novella. Virtual classrooms aren't just for distance education. They are game changers for in-class interaction and out-of-class extended learning. Education has evolved a lot in the last couple of decades. In many ways, this evolution towards a virtual classroom has broken the natural boundaries that once existed in the exchange of information and has set the stage for a more personal and interactive learning experience. Technology has changed the way we consume information, and it is important that education in the workplace evolves with these new learning styles. A popular way of adapting to new learning styles is by virtual classrooms and through the flexibility and convenience of basically virtual classrooms. A virtual classroom can be more effective than a traditional classroom setting in terms of increased convenience, where the learners have the freedom to absorb content at their own pace with schedule flexibility and engage with peers at any time and location that they will learn the best. Learners can get immediate feedback on how well they comprehended the information. Therefore, it speaks about increased participation and engagement of students. Our today's webinar will throw light on what we've been impatiently waiting for, that is how to adapt material for the virtual classroom. And before we begin, I would like to request the President of Dharampeth Education Society, Assistant Solicitor General of India, Advocate Ulhas Aurangabadkar sir, to deliver his welcome note.
Thank you, Manjushri. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Nik. Good evening, Dr. Rajiv Ashtikar, Principal of Dharampeth Commerce College, Dr. Manjushri, the convener of this webinar, and I welcome you all to the webinar conducted by our own Commerce College for the benefit of all the persons, especially in respect of the subject, which is now become essential for you, me, and everybody. Friends, these days, everybody, according to me, is talking in a very sad tone. Every now and then when you discuss anything or everything to anybody, he speaks of there are n number of cases, positive cases detected, deaths, and whatnot. But friends, it is always said that one has to find the opportunity from the disguise. This, according to me, is a boon in disguise. As Manjushri has rightly said, that now we have to shift from the traditional classrooms to virtual classrooms. And this pandemic, which is now covered the entire world, in fact, is a boon in disguise, as one can say. Now the world, as everybody says, is very small, and one can have access to the education materials and everything on the tip of his finger. Our Dharampeth Arts Commerce College, RSM College, is always pioneer in adopting the new measures, taking the teachers and the students in confidence, and doing everything best possible for the students, teachers, and all other fraternity members. Friends, I really congratulate my friend Dr. Ashtikar, Dr. Manjushri, and all her supporting staff members for arranging this webinar on adapting materials for the virtual classroom. Friends, you will definitely find it a very illustrative, informative, and practical webinar, which is being dealt by an expert in the field. So without wasting much of time, and I definitely know that all of you are anxious to talk to Nik, who is an expert in the field. I close my words with again saying a good evening and best of luck to all the participants and the conveners. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Our principal, Dr. Rajiv Ashtikar, has extended his best wishes for this webinar. He's held up in some meeting, and so we'll continue. And now I would like to, it is my proud privilege to introduce you to the doyen of digital learning, the very industrious Mr. Nicholas Peachey. Nik Peachey is the Director of Pedagogy at Peachey Publications, an independent digital publishing company that specializes in the design of digital learning materials. He has been involved in education since 1990 and has more than 20 years experience of working specifically with online and blended learning environments. He has worked all over the world training teachers and developing innovative and creative products, and is a two-time British Council Innovations Award winner. His customers include British Council, Eton College, Open University, Google Creative Labs, and International House. His more recent projects have included 2 years as pedagogical manager for a 100% online school owned by Macmillan ELT, head of content development of Eton 10, a 100% online school owned by Eton College, and content developer for an English and interfaith dialogue course designed for the British Council and AI Hazard University in Cairo. His books include Digital Tools for Teachers, Thinking Critically Through Digital Media, Digital Video, a Manual for English Teachers, Hacking Creativity, Conversation and Listening, a series of lessons for the digital classroom. He has co-edited Creativity in the ELT Classroom and Creativity and the Sustainable Development Goals for the British Council. He is the editor of the EdTech and ELT newsletter. He has received the British Council ELTons Award for Innovation in Teacher Resources in 2016. He has also received the British Council ELTons Award for Excellence in Course Innovation in 2012. And that's an impressive profile. We are indeed fortunate to have you amidst us, Peachey sir. I would like to request Mr. Nik Peachey to commence with this session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation to be here. It's a great privilege, and also a wonderful experience to be able to present in India from my office in Kent at the moment. But this is something that we're all getting used to at the moment, and something that I guess will soon become very familiar to us. I'd just like to check that before I start that everybody knows where the chat window is. So if you can find chat and type it, just type in where you are at the moment, which city, which country you're in. Just type that into the chat, because it'd be nice to know where people are coming here from and who I'm talking to. So if you can find the chat window and just type that in, that would be marvelous. Bye. Great. Good. Okay, that's good. Okay, I hope the sound is okay. Somebody lets me know if there's a problem. So this session is on adapting materials for the virtual classroom. During the session, I'll look at 3 main things. The one thing will be the first thing will be the background and the kind of problems that teachers have encountered when adapting or finding materials to use in this kind of remote classroom. The second thing will be some examples of how I've tried to overcome those problems and in creating my own materials. And the third thing will be actually looking at some of the tools that you can use to help do that. And the tools that I look at and the tools that you'll see that I've used to create the materials that I've shown you are all free tools that are available on the internet. So, you know, these are all things that you can try to do yourselves. Okay, so those are the three main things I'll cover. There's just a bit of information about me. I think you've probably had enough information about me already from the introduction, but I have sort of four main roles. You know, I'm Director of Pedagogy at Peachey Publications. I'm also a course designer, a content author, and I work as a technology consultant as well. Just a bit of background to the situation that we're facing at the moment. Where the insights come from that I want to share with you today are from over 20 years of working with technology and in blended learning situations. I actually started teaching my first online course back in 1998. That's back in the last century, 22 years ago. And at that time, online learning was a little bit of a website with some interactive materials, followed up by telephone calls. I used to telephone my students and have phone calls with students. And as we can see, we've come an awful long way from there. Many of the insights that I'll share with you are based upon 2 years I spent working for a 100% online school that had 70 teachers scattered all over the world, and we were all teaching students in Brazil. That was about 4 or 5 years ago. We had problems finding materials and had problems with the materials being too classroom orientated. So I'll show you some of the challenges or what our teachers wanted to do and some of the problems that they had in this environment. Some of the challenges that the teachers faced were among these. They wanted to have materials that were visually attractive. Most teachers had started teaching their lessons just using this video space that we're using now and talking with their students. And because they didn't have course books that were made for this kind of environment, they found it very difficult to do anything but chat with students in this kind of environment. And they now realized that they needed to do more than this. They wanted attractive materials. They wanted to be able to manage pair and group work in breakout rooms. Platforms like Zoom have breakout rooms so that you can put students into groups or pairs and get them to work together. But there's a problem with that in that once the students go into the pairs or groups, they lose sight of the materials that you're screen sharing, or in some platforms they do. So we had this problem of making specific materials available to specific students. So that was a big problem. There was another problem with developing listening skills. You know, teachers had course books that had CD-ROMs or something, but how did they get their students to listen to materials when they're in this kind of environment? How could they do listening tasks? How could they do writing skills tasks? You know, what were the tools that would enable them to do that? We had problems with developing reading as well, in that the screen often isn't very suitable for longer reading texts. And of course, students' note-taking. Where would students take their notes? Should they be taking them on paper, or they should be taking them digitally online? So those were some of the challenges that we faced. And so now I'll show you some examples of some of the things that I've created over the last few years to try and overcome those kinds of problems. So these are materials that I've created. Firstly, what I've been using is and what you're seeing now in this presentation is a technology called HTML5. It works in the web browser. It's very dynamic. As you can see, there's lots of movement, lots of color and images, and it's very easy to create these visually attractive materials and actually share them with students. If you look down at the bottom left-hand corner here, you should see that there's a QR code. And this is a code that students can use then with their mobile phones and the camera on their mobile phones, and they can scan it so that they can take the materials onto their phone. So that while they're watching the screen, while they're having interaction, students can use the materials and follow the materials using their phone. So we use the screen and we kind of use the phone as the course book. And all these materials, because they're developed in HTML5, will work on any kind of phone and will adapt a little to the screen size so that they can be viewed conveniently on the phone screen. So that was one of the first things that we did when sort of adapting the materials, is to get them into this HTML5 platform and start and use the QR codes to enable us to share the materials. And whether the students has a tablet or they have a mobile phone, they can scan that code and put it onto their phone. The other possibility is, because these materials are based on the web and are web-based, we can share a link to them through the chat. So if I want to share the material or the presentation with my students, I can just copy and paste a link into the chat room and they can open it up and follow it on their computer. So immediately we're making the materials available for students to use on their devices, and the students aren't just in the control of the teacher. One of the next problems we addressed, and again using this technology, was how to develop listening skills. And this HTML5 technology enables us to embed listening into our materials. So as you can see just over here, I'll just annotate it a bit. Over here, I have there's a big listening file. So I can just click on that to play it to my students, and they should be able to hear that. Now that works in some virtual classrooms, but it doesn't work in all virtual classrooms, because in some they don't pick up the sound from the computer, they only pick up the sound from your headphones. So as an alternative to this, we've also included within this platform these interactive points here. So if I click on this interactive point, for example, my students see a QR code, and then they can use their phone to scan the audio file onto their phone and listen to it through their phone. Alternatively, I can share a link with it to them. I can open the link, copy that, and then just share that through the chat. So if students can't access it through the screen, they can't access it through the QR code, they can at least access the audio file through chat and listen to it on their own computer. So again, it makes students a bit more independent, and it enables us to develop listening skills. One of the other nice features of the technologies that I use is that I have another technology that works with it, and I can embed interactive activities into the materials as well. So here's a little vocabulary activity that students can do, and then we can sort of match the different words to the definitions within the screen. And again, as you'll see down the bottom right of the corner, there's also, down here at the bottom, there's a QR code, so students can scan that activity onto their device, or I can share it through chat. So they can do the interactive activity and check their vocabulary. As you can see, I haven't done very well here, but I can see the solution and I can retry. And that activity is using a technology called H5P, which I'll show you later, and then I can embed that into my HTML5 presentation. So that's a way of getting language work and developing vocabulary within our materials. Another of the activities that we've developed to help with this is also dictation activities which aid with pronunciation. And again, we can either use these from the screen so students can listen and type in, and then they can check to see whether they've got the answers right. This one hasn't done too well, only 7 out of 100 potential marks. But if they can work through the activities, and again, we can either do it together on the screen, working as a group, or we can share it, or students can scan the QR code and do it on their own device. So again, it develops deeper listening skills and more accurate listening skills, and helps to develop their ability to listen to pronunciation. I've got a dog barking outside here, so I'm just going to shut my window. Okay, that should be a bit better. Sorry about that. So again, we can develop deeper listening skills working online in this kind of environment. The other thing this technology enables us to do is, if we're having discussions or using discussion tasks with our students, we can also link out to internet resources to give them additional information. So this button here links out to an infographic which gives them information about mobile phone recycling, for example. So we can connect up materials from outside of our presentation, which are internet based, and share them with students in that way. One of the other nice things that we've done designing our materials in this kind of environment is we've enabled, the materials have enabled teachers to do split listening tasks. So this screen, for example, the task combines 3 different listening texts, each from a different person, as you can see them on the screen. And we can ask each student, we can put students into groups of 3, ask each one to scan the audio file for the person they want to listen to, and then they listen to the file independently, and they go into their breakout room together and they compare what they've heard. So we can build speaking tasks in breakout rooms and develop them around these listening tasks. I've got one person who says they can't see the screen. Is that, can everybody see okay? Hope so.
Yes, sir. It's perfectly visible, sir.
Okay, so those are just examples of a different way to do listening. We can split the listening up, have 3 different people listen to it, and then they can work in breakout rooms and speak together. And that's quite easy to do using this technology. One of the ways we've tried to address the problems of reading is to break down text into easily adaptable chunks. So again, what I have here is quite a long text about a weekend in Manchester, and I've broken it down into 4 parts, and we can either go through them step by step, getting students to scan each part onto their mobile phone, or I can share links to them, or that we can do it within the class. So each of the QR codes links to a different part of the text. And this is what each one links to. So the first part is about a recommendation for where to stay, which hotel to stay in Manchester. Then the second part is advice for what to do on the Friday. They have a picture and a text, and they can scan this part onto their phone. What to do on Saturday. And what to do on Sunday. So this breaks the text down into much smaller chunks. It also enables students to scan these texts onto their mobile phones and read them on the mobile phone, and work in breakout rooms to do tasks and work together based around those kinds of text. Again, that's something that's quite easy to create using the technologies that I use. Another example, we had problems with students doing role plays. We wanted to put students into breakout rooms to do a role play, but we didn't know how to give them the role play cards. And so now we've split the cards so that we've put students into pairs. Each one can scan one of the QR codes. So student 1 scans this code, And this is what they see. They've got roll card 1 and they see their role here. And the second student sees roll card 2, they click and they see their roll card here. So again, enabling role play, students scan the materials onto their phone, or we can pass them links and they can work within breakout rooms to do their role plays together while the teacher goes around and monitors. Getting students into breakout rooms, I think, is one of the most important things if you don't want to end up just doing a lecture. For students to get language practice and to work together doing parent group work, we really have to get them into those breakout rooms and give them materials to work with. And this is sort of the main technology that I've used to do that. One of the other wonderful things about this technology is that we can also embed video into it. So we can show students videos during our language classes. Either they can use the QR code to scan it, or we can actually play them directly from within the platform. This video, for example, has a viewing task, so students don't need to listen to it, and they watch, and afterwards they have a discussion task based around the themes within the video. This is a very nice one about an old lady who has a robot who looks after her. So it's a weird mixture of the modern and the futuristic. Okay, and again, it's very easy to build interaction and build tasks around those kind of videos once we can get them showing on the screen in a way that all students can see. Okay, so those are some examples of some of the things that we've created to make the online lessons more engaging, more interesting, and much more colourful and easier for students and teachers to manage. Now, in the next part of the webinar, I'll look at some of the tools that I've used to do this and show you how a few of those work. Okay, the main one and the one that I'm using for this presentation and to create the materials that I'm showing you is a tool called Genially. And again, it's a free tool. And it enables you to create lots of different kinds of materials. If I go to create now, you should be able to see there's a whole bunch of different types of material that I can create using this tool. And each one of these sections has examples and templates that I can adapt. So if I go to the presentation section, you'll see that there are a collection of different presentations that I can adapt using this technology. I can get a preview of them. Might take a little while to load. So I can look at what the presentation's like. I can choose different colors. And then when I'm ready, I just click to use that presentation and I can adapt it and customize it for my own content. So I can select which those are the different slides from the presentation, and I can just select the ones that I want. I'm not going to do that right now. I'll just go back. Some of the other useful tools within it is it has a section on learning experiences, which enables you to create things like quizzes and dossiers and portfolios for your students or along with your students. And again, there's a collection of templates there already. So for example, this one is a tool that enables you a template that enables you to create a basic quiz. So if you want to use the template, you choose it and then you just customize it with your own content. You put your own questions in, your own answers, and then just relaunch it and share it with your students. So as you can see, there are lots of different templates there that you can use and adapt to create your own materials. It's worth checking out the other sections as well. You know, there's a very good one on infographics if you want to create infographics for your students or get your students to create infographics. There's a good section here as well. And you can just choose one of these templates and adapt it for your own students. I'll give you a quick look at how it works in practice. So here's a short presentation that I've started building. You can see along here, there are different slides down the side. And if I want to add a page, I just click on Add Page here. I'll just add a blank page for now. And that adds a page to my presentation. Next, I can start adding different things to it. I can add text and I can choose different text blocks. If I click on that one. So it gives me the basic texts, which I can then add my content to. And just choose what I want to put in there. I can animate those texts very simply. So if I click on them and I click on this button here, I can make that text move in different ways. I can make it zoom in or focus or bounce back. So I get a preview of how my text will look using these different kinds of functions. So I can animate that text in different ways. I can animate the way it leaves and the mouse overs. So lots of different animation features there that I can add to the different blocks on my page. I can change color very easily. And select my colors. Of course, we don't just want text on our page. So another nice feature of this is that it has a collection of different images that we can just drop into the slides. So for example, if I want a picture of something from India, let's just type India. And I can drag in images to add to my presentation. Just place them where I want them, and I can also animate those as well. So I can get that one to fade in from the side. Okay, if I want to see how I'm doing, I can preview that and see how my presentation is developing and go back to editing it. So there are lots of different things I can choose from there. I can also add, let's just go back, animated GIFs. So, you know, if I want a picture of some animation on the screen, I can have this little animal clapping. I can add other things such as hands and delete things. I'll just delete that. I can position my raccoon within the phone. So I can create all these different kinds of effects and graphics to share with students on my through my materials. Other things that I can do within the resources, there are different shapes as well, so I can drag in different shapes, animate those. I'll just add another slide, another page. One of the other useful things I can do is I can add interactive items. So there's a lot of different interactive items here, which I can drag onto the screen and then link. So for example, if I drag one like this, and I click on the little hand, I can link that to different things within my presentation. It could be a link to another window within my presentation, or it could be a window that pops up. I'll just close that. And then when I click on that, icon, it shows this little window showing more information. So I can sort of build those in different ways. It doesn't have to be a link to a window. I could go to a page instead. So I could just click on it, save, and change what that does. So now if I click on it, it changes, it takes me to a different slide in my presentation. So that's very easy to do. Another alternative is that if I want to, let's go to a link, I can link it to something outside of the presentation. So it could be a link to a website with more information. It could be a link to Google Maps. It could be a link to a YouTube video. So there are different things that we can use these little interactive signs. When you were looking at my materials, oh, that's the wrong one. When you were looking at my materials, you might have seen this one in quite a few places, and that's what I use to indicate that there's interactivity there and to link and that it shows some other materials. Other things that we can do here, if I just get rid of these, is it has collections of different graphs that we can customize and add our own content to that we can just drag onto here. Okay, and then that's a nice animated graph. So if we want to do something like a pleasant presentation on Bloom's taxonomy or Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we just need to drag the graph onto there, and then we can edit it and put in our own text, for example. And that, again, that's easy to do and makes the process of creating materials that are interactive and engaging easier. I'll just show you a final one. Another important, and for me, one of the most important aspects of this tool is, again, this insert menu, because this is where we can insert audio. We can click to record audio through here, which is added to our slide, or we can add videos to our slide, either from YouTube or Vimeo. And this other one, we can add any kind of embed code to our slide that adds interactivity to it. So those HTML5 interactive materials that I was showing in my own materials, those are added just by taking an embed code hit from here and adding them to the material. So if I just go back to pages. So for example, this video here was added just by if I launch that and open it. So if I go to YouTube, click on share and copy the link there, when I go to the video, if I go to insert video, I just paste in my link here, click on the small arrow, and that adds the video to my slides. So that's just an easy way of adding videos to your materials and making them much more interactive and engaging and media rich. So very simple to do. And then when I'm finished, I just share the link with my students. So those are that's basically Genially and how I create the presentations and the materials that I show in the classroom. There are some other very important things that, just leave that page, that help me to enable this process. So Genially, that's great for creating your presentations. The next tool that I have is, to enable me to share the materials with students and get them on the phone, onto their phones, I need to do this tool, which is called a QR code generator. So this creates the code that I put into my presentation that enables me to share it with my students. So if I copy the link to my presentation up the top here, and I open the QR code generator, this is what it looks like. I just click on URL there, and I paste in the top left of the screen, I paste in the link to my presentation. I can make that a little bit shorter, and you'll see the code is changing. And then when that code's done, I click on save, give that code a name, and click on save. So this will save the QR code to my computer, and then I can just open it. So if I open that code now, and I can copy and paste that code onto my presentation, if you scan that, you'll get a direct link directly to the presentation that I'm doing now, and that will be on your phone, and you'll be able to scroll through it. So, using these links, these QR code links, enables us to get the materials straight onto our students' devices very quickly, and without having to worry about getting them to copy URLs or anything like that. So that's the QR code generator, and that's something that I found really useful for creating my materials. The interactive activities, where students have to type in or do drag and drop activities, are all created using a free tool called H5P. And H5P, again, has lots of different interactions it can create. In order to use it, you need either a free Moodle platform or a free WordPress platform, and there you can build the different kinds of materials. And these are all the different kinds of interactive materials that you can build using that device. It's very good at creating interaction in video. So for example, this is an interactive video that was created with it. I'll just mute that. So the video has different points where interaction is created, and students can click on things to check their comprehension of the video as they move through it. So when they get to another of these points, again, they have some things to stop and check. And at each of these, there's a drag and drop quiz there. So these are actually embedded into the video materials, so they can make the video viewing experience very interactive and developmental for their students. And that's an example of the materials that we can create using H5P. We can do this one, that we can give students tasks to record themselves, so they can record themselves and save an audio file that they can then share with their teacher for feedback. We can do fill in the blanks type activities where students have to type in, and then they can check their answers. So there are lots of these different types of materials and activities that we can create using this tool. And as you can see, there's far too many for me to show you now. And that's a great tool for developing interaction and building online courses or blended learning courses, and one that I've used a lot for my materials. You'll get a link to that at the end of the presentation. I'll give you a link to the presentation, and everything you need will be there. One very simple tool is something called Telegraph, which is telegraph.ph, and that can enable you to create very simple role play cards or simple web-based materials. And if I just show you this now, if you open it, you can type in a title. You can never spell that. Manager. Type in some instructions. Okay, persuade. And if you want to, if you see this little icon that appears here, you can actually add an image to it, or you can add just from your computer, or you can add a video to it if you want to. And when you've completed it, you just click on publish, and then you can share that link at the top there with your students, and that's their role card. Or you can use it to create a QR code that they can scan this material onto their device. If you want to edit it, you can go just click on edit again. You can click between edit and publish there. So if you click back to edit, you can change it around, delete things if you want to, adapt the text, add different links to it, and that puts all of your materials onto the net. And once you click publish, you get a unique URL here that you can share with your students. So that makes creating roll cards and creating simple single sheets materials very easy for you and your students. The last thing I'll share to you is just a way of creating audio. And this is a simple tool. Again, it works in your web browser and you can use it to create audio files. It's called Buckaroo. And I'm not sure if it'll work at the moment because my microphone is going through Zoom. But in order to record audio, you can get your students to do this, or you can do it. You just click on the red button, click allow, start to speak, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, stop, and then you can play it back. So if you like that audio, then you can click on save and share, and you can either take the link or the embed code, and you can put it into the Genially presentations and make it part of your materials. So that's a very easy way to instantly create or upload audio files that you can share with your students. It even generates a QR code for you if you want, and you can get your students to scan it onto their mobile devices immediately so they have a record. So it's great for giving examples of pronunciation or something like that. And if you don't like it, you just delete it. And that's a very easy tool to use, very easy, simple tool to use to create audio materials that you can put online for your students. I'll close that. Last of the tools that I use is something very simple for creating documents and getting students to interact with documents online. Again, this is web-based, great for collaboration. Just click on, for example, rich text. This will create an online file, and then students can create tasks for your students, and then when it says share, students can work on it together. You can either allow them to just view it or to edit it, and if they edit it, I'll pass this through the chat window. And if you click on the link, you can start to edit it so everyone can work on the document together. I mean, I think we have far too many people here to all work on it collaboratively. But if you click on the link that's in chat, you'll see that file opens on your own computer, and that enables us to do some collaborative writing work. You can use it to have tutorials with your students and look at their work and do correction on it while you talk through it with them. Or you can use it to create collaborative writing activities for your students that they work on together. So lots of different ways that you can use that. And if you click into the screen, once you get there, you should be able to start editing it. I can see that there are a couple of people appearing here already. Okay, good. See, and now that's not me typing. You can see that somebody else is typing. Different people are appearing here. It's better not to use it anonymously and to type your name in, but it is a way of creating a collaborative document that students can work on together in a virtual classroom. So we can still do writing activities in this kind of environment, which I think is very important, especially as we could be using this environment for quite a long time yet. There are different sorts of things that you can do, get students to create presentations together, Excel sheets, polls. There's also a kind of whiteboard tool that creates a miniature whiteboard, so you can get students using the whiteboard collaboratively together, or you can use it and show it to them. So lots of different possibilities there for the development of an adaptation of their materials. So those are the main things that I wanted to show you. At the end of my slides, when I share them with you, you'll see that there are some other things that I do. If you like digital tools and you're interested in digital learning, there's a link to a site that I manage called Tools for Teachers and Learners, and you can find many more tools there. This is something that I collected for my MA students, and there are links to lots of digital tools that you can use. Most of them have some kind of free service with them, and you can use those to combine into your teaching. I also edit a newsletter called the EdTech newsletter. If you want to sign up, please do. There's a link to the sign up page. If you sign up, you get a free book called Digital Tools for Teachers. So that's worth signing up. A link to my blog if you want to read more about different kinds of technologies we can use. My publications, these are the materials that I publish professionally myself. And if you just want to follow me on Twitter, there's a link to my Twitter profile there. So that's my 45 minutes pretty much up. I'd just like to say thank you for listening. I hope there's been something valuable for you there. If you want the presentation to work through again and look at all the links, you can either scan the QR code that's up here, or I'll paste a link to the presentation through the chat, and you can open the presentation in chat there. And you can look through that later. Has different links to my social media profiles here. So if you want to go and find out some of the other things that I do, by all means look through there and see what you can find. There's lots of information about using educational technology for developing language and developing the ELT classroom. Apart from that, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions, I'll stay for another 15 minutes to ask questions. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Peachey sir. And now we are open for interaction. So I would like to request the participants to raise your hands if you have questions. Anyone from the participants? So it was a wonderful session. I would like to ask you whether like in India, we have students from the rural areas, and we teachers need to deal with students from the rural areas. Do you think that this will be able to teach using these gadgets, we'll be able to deal with them in virtual classrooms?
I think helping students who are in rural areas in virtual classrooms is difficult because things like Zoom, needs an element of connectivity. But it is quite good at low bandwidth because you can turn off the video and just have audio, and students can still get a connection and still listen. The technology that I've been showing you today that I used to produce this presentation with, Genially, that can be used without an internet connection. So I worked on a project with the British Council on a project in Africa for students in rural areas, and you can create the presentation and then export it and put it onto a small SD card which goes in a mobile phone. So students can then view and listen to the materials on their mobile phone. It takes a different approach to the materials design, but it will work with no connectivity whatsoever. And so that is one of the features of HTML5. It can reach people where there is no connectivity. If they have a mobile phone and they can put in a little SD card, that can work very well.
Yeah. Nadeem sir, would you like to ask any questions?
Yeah, we have Kalpana Tiwari ma'am here, and she has raised the hand. So I have unmuted her. Please go ahead, Kalpana ma'am. Kalpana ma'am, are you there?
You could also type questions into the text chat if you're shy or if you're having problems with the audio.
Yeah, Nik sir, there is one question on the YouTube feed. It's from Andrea Vince. how long can we have access to these recorded files, for example, on Buckaroo?
As far as I know, they stay there indefinitely. But Buckaroo, for example, you can download the audio file if you want to and save it onto your own computer. And then sort of an environment like this, you could then upload it. But as far as I know, they stay there quite a long time.
Okay, sir, thank you. There is one more participant, Sumit Kumar Singh. Please go ahead with your question.
I can see a question here in the bottom about charges for software. All of the things that I've shown you today are free. Some of them also have premium accounts that you can get more functionality with, or that they can do more things with. But all of the things that I've shown you are free, or have a free version, so you don't have to pay anything. And if you work through my presentation, all of the links are there. So just follow the links to them in the presentation.
Thank you, sir. Nik, sir, one question from me. You have been in the learning technologies for more than 2 decades. How far we have come coming to this pandemic situation? We are now moving to the technology, or we can say educational technology. So how was the transition and how far we have come?
Yeah, I think a lot of the technology we're using now has been around for quite a long time, and a lot of things have stopped us from using it. Sometimes it was teachers who were reluctant to change the way they teach. Sometimes it's been because there's not the connectivity, or at times it's been because the school didn't allow teachers to use these kinds of technologies. I think what we've done in the last 3 months is catch up on the last 10 years of technology. So I think we've crammed 10 years of development into 3 months. And, but in a lot of ways, that's a very positive thing. We've come a long way, I think. Most teachers have taken a 10-year leap in 3 months, and that's a good thing. But we have to keep working with it, keep understanding it better, and keep moving things forward, I think, so that, we really make this effective. And I think if things do return to normal, or if and when things return to normal and we go back to our physical classrooms, I think we have to remember what we've learned from this, and that there are things that we can take from it into our physical classroom to make our face-to-face teaching much better. So, that's something good that I'd like to see come out of this situation.
Thank you, sir. Kirti Tiwari ma'am is back. Are you there, Kirti ma'am?
There's a question about training for teachers. I think there's a lot that teachers can do for themselves to get themselves trained and try these different technologies. But I think if you have to teach in this kind of environment, yes, it does help if you have some training that will help with that. And I think training is very important for teachers, and often it's something that kind of gets neglected as well. If I can just go to my I'll find a presentation that I can share with you on teacher training. There it is. Go away. Okay, if I grab the link to this. This is a short presentation that I developed on different aspects of teacher training. So I'll share the link through chat if you want to keep that and have a look at it later. And these are the different aspects that teachers need training on. And if you click on these interactive elements, you can see in more detail about that. So, yeah, I think training is important, and those are some of the aspects that I think are very vital. I've sort of divided it into 6 areas and sort of looked and broken down what I think are the main points within that. So I've shared that through the chat window. If you see the link, it should, I've shared it privately. Let's share to everyone. If I share to everyone here, you should see the link to that presentation there. And you can click through that and have a look in more detail. But those are some of the things that I think we need to cover in terms of training. Any other questions?
Yeah, thank you, sir. There is one more question from the YouTube. Are there any offline apps for teaching?
Offline apps. I think, you know, asking for an offline app is quite difficult. I mean, there are things that you know, offline apps that students can do things with, but you can't have an offline app that enables this sort of communication. I'll just trying to remember what a suggestion. I can't remember it. No, I think if you have a look through my through the apps on my Scoop It page, if we go back just a slide to Scoop It, you'll see that there are hundreds of different apps there that can do different things. You know, if you search through this, there are something like 1,500 different apps there that do various different things, and some of them will help you with offline. You know, even Genially, the one that I've used for this presentation, will help you a little with offline. You can create materials that work offline. But, you know, in this kind of situation, we need to be able to contact our students, and really the internet and connectivity is the way to make that happen, I'm afraid. Any other questions? I can see you're raising your hand, but I don't know if I can unmute you.
Yeah, I will do it.
There's a question about how to use images without violating copyright. The images that I used in Genially, when I showed you how to develop the platform, if I just go back to this one and open that, and it's taking a little bit longer now. And if I go to images there, the images that it searches through here are on a site called Pixabay, and all of those images are royalty free. So you don't have to worry about copyright with these images. They're all free for anyone to use. And there's a vast collection with hundreds of thousands of different images of almost everything. So you can grab those images and just add them to your presentations. And you don't have to sort of worry about the sort of copyright issues there. And those come from a site called Pixabay. I'll try and share the site with you. It's Pixabay. Okay. I'll share the link. Yeah, that's Pixabay. So Pixabay has royalty-free images, so you don't have to worry about copyright if you use those.
Thank you, sir. We have one more participant who has raised hand. Sumit Kumar Singh, sir. Can you go ahead with your question?
Sir, thank you, sir. I am a research scholar in Patna University, sir. My question is, the topic is adapting material for virtual classroom. The thing is that, sir, in our rural areas, for example, mainly in Bihar, I'm concerned about Bihar, I see many of the students who couldn't access to the classroom teaching because of the internet connectivity and other iPhone or other instruments that are required for having video conferencing with their teachers. In those localities, except for having iPhone or laptop, etc. accessories, is there any sort of alternative that you will suggest for those students to have access to their virtual classroom in their concerned college or school, sir?
I think it's difficult to have access to an environment like this, for example, without some kind of smartphone. I think there are plenty of ones that work on Google devices or work on Android. That isn't a problem. But if they have no connectivity, then that becomes more of a problem. But there are materials that you can create which are interactive, like this tool that I'm using for the presentation, Genially, will enable you to create interactive materials that you can put on an SD card, one of those little cards that slides into the side of the phone, so they could still listen to an audio on it or work through a presentation. So there are things that we can do offline using these kinds of technologies. But in terms of giving a class, a live class like the one we're experiencing at the moment, then that, I think, without connectivity, that's just not possible.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
There is one question on my side. What platform do you use for sending the newsletters? I get your newsletters. I'm a regular follower of you. So what platform you are using for this?
I use a platform called TinyLetter. I'll share this with you through the chat, and it's free to create the newsletter. And okay, if I just share it with everyone down the bottom here. It's a service called TinyLetter. You can sign up and you can have up to 5,000 subscribers on that using TinyLetter. If you have more, then you have to go to a service that you have to pay for, but up to 5,000 users is free.
Great, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks. You're welcome. We have another hand. Did you have your hand up?
Siddharth, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, you can proceed with your question.
Hello?
Yes, you're audible, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay. Sir, I would like to ask a question. On the same the rural area students who couldn't afford mobile phones, Android phones and all. So maybe in America or maybe in European countries, the online teaching is means virtual classes or virtual learning is successful, or what kind of situation in this in such countries?
Yeah, I think, you know, the success depends on another number of things. Connectivity, yes, is very important, you know, but also the other important things are training teachers so that teachers understand the limitations of what this can and what it can't do, and trying to extend those limitations as well. You know, if it comes to it, you know, we can, you know, my first experience of teaching online was, you know, 22 years ago, was using an old telephone and some materials that students downloaded. You know, there's lots of things we can do and can adapt to if students have some form of device. It doesn't have to be an iPhone. It doesn't even have to be a Google phone. You know, any phone that's capable of taking these small SD cards that you slip into the side and can deliver some kind of materials. I worked on a project with a university in the north of India in Lucknow, creating teacher training materials for teachers who were in rural areas, and we created the materials, put them onto very tiny SD cards that they could then put into their phones, the old Nokia style phone, and they could sort of watch a video and do some listening, and we combined those with paper materials. You know, we can find different ways around these problems if we understand the technology and look at what it can do, and we have trained teachers.
So in country like India, where most of the students come from rural area and they are economically suppressed, and such students cannot get online classes. So what platform would you like to refer to them? I mean, as a teacher, I cannot connect them equally like other students as they come from urban areas.
There's a possibility that if they can use text, even if they have simple text phones, a lot of teachers now in rural areas are using things like WhatsApp, and so sending WhatsApp messages and combining this with paper-based methods. But, you know, there is a limit to what you can do. You know, if the student has no phone, no connectivity, you know, then there's a point at which you can't do anything really, and you just have to accept that. You know,
yes,
and maybe that's the point at which government can step in and help and ensure that, you know, I think, you know, moving forward from this, we need to ensure that many more people have access to internet. And, you know, this pandemic shows us just how important that is, because although it's difficult, it would be so much more difficult for people who don't have that kind of connectivity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree, sir. And we since last 2 months we have been teaching them through WhatsApp messages, through Facebook groups.
Yeah, WhatsApp messages and Facebook groups can really help. Even using Twitter or something like that. In China, WeChat is used quite a lot as well. But I think, but there's a limit to what you can do. They have to have something that they can get some form of connectivity on. Yeah, that's great.
Sir, one question is from WhatsApp group. How can we manage teaching large classes in teaching online?
I think if we're teaching large classes online, what's really essential is that the platform we use has breakout rooms so that you can give students activities to do together. You can put them into the breakout rooms into smaller groups, and then they can sort of work on it while you go around and monitor the different groups. But if you have a large class, the breakout rooms are essential. Otherwise, it just becomes a lecture, and lectures don't really help you develop your speaking skills.
Thank you very much, sir. We have one more question. Anita Pillai, ma'am, you can go ahead with your question.
Hello, sir. I'm
Seems to be a problem with the sound. I can't hear the question.
Yeah. Can you type your question, Anila Pillai, ma'am, so that we can take it?
Neela.
Not audible to us.
Neela from Surat, which is in Gujarat. I would be interactive as well, but I have connectivity issues, and we were.
Yeah, she's losing the connection.
Yeah. So can you type your question, Anila, ma'am? And we have one more question from Shubhra Verma. Please proceed with your question.
I can see there's a question at the bottom about acknowledging material taken from YouTube and other places. I think if you're taking material from YouTube, if you embed it into the presentation, then that isn't a problem because all the acknowledgement is there and it links back to the original source. But you shouldn't be taking it, downloading it, and then adding it to your materials. If that's the case, then you need permission.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Shubhra Verma, ma'am, we have unmuted you. Please go ahead with your question.
Sir, I just wanted to know that there are few teachers here who are compulsorily going on with the online classes, but it is a new thing for us. So I just wanted to get some information from Honorable Sir. Sir, what would be the best promising way to get habitual with this particular type of method so that we can give the most of our knowledge to our students at present?
Yeah, I think Zoom is that we're using now is a very good tool for that. It works in sort of lower connectivity areas. I think one of the things that we need to do is get used to using the video camera as a tool for teaching. We're used to standing at the front of the classroom where we have lots of space, but now we're working from this small area of video, and I think that takes some adapting to. So I think as teachers, if we can adapt to using this space, maybe get a little bit further away from our cameras. As you can see, I'm standing quite far back from my camera. My screen's way over here. I stand a long way back, so I can use some body language. I can communicate much more clearly than if I were sort of very, very close to the camera. And I think, learning how to work with the camera when we work with our students, learning how to use our voice, all of these things are quite important aspects of developing our teaching technique so that it works effectively in this kind of environment for our students. I hope that goes somewhere.
We have one Vivek Srivastava, sir.
So, Nick, it was very good presentation today, but I just wanted to know one thing, that all those software websites and the packages which you have shown is free or it's a chargeable?
Yeah, all of the things that I've shown you, all of the different websites are free. So they're free to use, and you just need to register on them. Some of them have premium content or more expensive things that you have to buy if you want to use other parts, but all of them are functional for free. You know, and most of the materials that I showed you were built using the free tools from those different.
No, normally in India, we prefer free versions.
Yeah.
So
you can
that's
have
why
the free
I
version.
asked this question.
Yeah, I don't think that's just normal for India. I think that's normal for everywhere. Everywhere there are teachers, they prefer to have the free version. And so there are free versions of all of these. But if you want to pay to get something better, then you can also pay them as well. And that's what they rely on.
Oh yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nik sir.
You're welcome. I'll just share the link again to my presentation in case anyone still hasn't got it or it's disappeared. Just put that in there. Share to everyone. Okay, I've just put the link through the presentation again. And again, if you go to the presentation, all of the links are there to the different tools. Just sort of click on the images and the interactive parts and you'll be able to see them and see how that works. And that was created using Genially, which is the free tool. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. Yeah, let's
You're
go
welcome.
to Manjushri ma'am. Manjushri ma'am, can you just join in?
Hello.
Yeah,
Am I
you're
audible?
back. Yes.
Thank you, sir. That was indeed a wonderful session, Peachey sir. I express my gratitude to you for such an informative program. You have given us an insight on so many aspects of virtual training, and that was really a great learning experience. And we are we are really waiting to implement all those in our virtual classroom. And I'm really thankful to our President, Advocate Aurangabadkar sir, for sparing his valuable time and joining us. He has always been a perennial source of inspiration to us. I'm thankful to our principal for his full-fledged support and always motivating us to organize such professional development programs. I would like to thank Mr. Mangesh Pathak sir for his help and assistance. Last but not the least, I'm indebted to Mr. Nadeem Khan and his ProWiggle team for providing us with such fantastic technical support, without whom this webinar would not have been possible. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Nik sir, for sparing time for us. And we know from our side, from all the teachers here in this webinar and who are watching you on YouTube live today, we wish you all the best for your third nomination for the Innovations Prize from the British Council UK.
Thank you.
Prize.
All the best.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's a real pleasure. And,
Thank you,
Yeah, it's a wonderful
I
session.
hope you enjoy your online teaching.
Yeah, we would like to invite you for more sessions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Hope
thanks very much.
we have you again on the second webinar very soon in the coming time. And thank you very much, sir.
Yes, and
Thanks
I
a
would
lot.
like to request the participants to fill the feedback forms, which are the link is given here. And thank you for participating in such large numbers. We really had an overwhelming response today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much. Have a nice evening. Yeah.